about not ending in prayer, but moving to action. And the gospel of the kingdom, Zechariah 2:5, but I declares the Lord will be a wall of fire to her on all sides. I will be the glory in her midst. An encouraging word today, but also a little bit of an admonishment. A lot of times we are out there, we're in the streets, we're evangelizing, we're seeing people get baptized, seeing people give their lives to Jesus. We even see them get discipled. And then what? What happens after that? There has to be a program in place so that we move to one of the areas of influence in the culture and we see transformation happen. That's the next piece of the puzzle. I hear a lot of people slamming evangelism, and they really never go out and evangelize themselves. And we're called, all of us as Christians, go out and evangelize. So really, the question for all of us today, and this is not in any way a condemnation, just if you have actually had an opportunity just to pray for somebody in the last week, kind of raise your hand, And if you haven't, make today the day that you pray for somebody. If you've never led anybody to Jesus Christ, and that would be the next question, have you ever actually led somebody to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ? How about in the last month? If you haven't, take it as an admonishment that today you're going to preach the gospel to somebody and watch them come into the kingdom. So we should always evangelize. We should always be preaching the gospel of the kingdom, healing the sick, casting out demons. We should be doing these things. Then we should disciple, and we should be discipled. And a mark of true discipleship is equipping. Regardless of what church you go to, the question is, are you being equipped to actually go out and be the body of Jesus Christ? Are you being equipped to do that? Some people get bent out of shape about what equipping even looks like. Well, first of all, the question is it just book learning, or is it book learning and going actually out and practicing our faith beyond the four walls of the church? And real discipleship, the fruit of it is generational. You'll see the Abraham generation, the Isaac generation, and you will see the Jacob generation very clearly passing one to the other, and in the Jacob generation edifying, honoring, and respecting generations above them, and the Isaac generation honoring and respecting both. So this is a hallmark, a fruit of discipleship. So if you have to ask yourself, is that happening where I'm going to church? If it's not, then it's an admonishment. We'll start. Now, next show, I'm going to talk about something that is critical on these points here in a lot more detail, and it's in regards to what are called the Noahide laws. And I'm going to get into this because there is a hierarchical mentality that has crept into the church instead of there being a relational mentality. In other words, the fruit of the kingdom is very clearly, the fruit of the Spirit is very clearly shown through the relational connections, not the hierarchical structural connections. And so, again, back to fruit. The fruit of the Spirit, that's what we're looking for. Those are marks of discipleship. Gentleness is a mark of discipleship. Faith, in the building of faith, is a mark of discipleship. And so you can see the fruits. And again, you ask yourself, are there fruits where I'm going to church? And if there's not, press in to discipleship today. And it is clearly imperfectly done throughout the world. But it's not just evangelism. It's not just discipleship, because I see some people doing discipleship and not evangelism. It's evangelism and discipleship with an eye of sending out people through a process and a strategy to transform the nation, specifically through these 7 spheres of influence. Some call them 7 mountains, and that's a trigger word for some people. I don't know. I don't even understand why. It's just a way of categorizing spheres of influence in the culture, but so be it. But government, business, church, family, arts and entertainment, media. Yes, media. Media is a huge one. And of course, the church itself. So we are pressing forward right now as a body of Christ to see the nation, the world transformed. And we're coming into an era when that is going to be something that we're going to look back on and say, well, how did we not see this back then? Well, we kind of can see it. If you're looking that this era of transformation, yes, it's going to be a testing time. Yes, there is going to be apostasy, but at the same time, there's awakening. God has put us right here, right now, for evangelism, discipleship, and transformation. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing. And we're going to start off with a little bit of humor, but take a moment right now, especially if you're watching online, hit like, comment, share, and please go to Rumble. Follow us, subscribe on Rumble, please. It helps us get around the censorship. Now, we're going to start off with some humor. And I want to tell you a quick story. So there was somebody I met a long time ago, and there's a lesson, a generational lesson here. The Abraham generation needs to pass on power to the Isaac generation, the next generation, and to pass on the lessons that they've learned through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and hard work, okay? But I met a guy one time, and he said this to me, Matt, I'm not leaving the Washington State Senate unless they carry me out on a stretcher. And they actually ended up doing that. And so the video today is about a retirement home for old politicians who, well, don't want to retire.
American politicians are some of the oldest in the world, and as relatives of those politicians know, you'll have to pry that power out of their cold, dead hands. That's where we come in. AMPO is a retirement home for politicians too old for literally anything else, but aren't quite ready to give up running the biggest economic and military power in the history of the world. At AMPO, we let you live the retirement life without actually having to retire. Whether you're a senator, congressperson, or the president, our assisted living facility allows those politicians to spend their twilight years gardening, lawn bowling, while still proposing complicated legislation regulating interstate and foreign commerce. They can knit, do arts and crafts, while still taking calls from Raytheon lobbyists on speakerphone at maximum volume. At AMPO, we have round-the-clock 24-hour assistance to help these politicians bathe, clothe themselves, and go to the bathroom. So there'll be no mess when making decisions on what democracy should be spread with an $800 billion a year annual military budget. We put a strong focus on your geriatric politician relatives' independence so they can keep their freedoms while deciding whether the American people get to keep theirs. So if your relative...
And now on a more serious note. Oh. If you're in the Isaac generation, it's time to pray and ask the Lord where he wants you in this time and obey his voice, because we need good people, kingdom-minded people. Not only in the government sphere, but in the business sphere, media sphere, and beyond. Maybe that's you. Now, this next video is a little distressing to some, and I want to caution you. I'm going to actually just kind of explain what's going on for those of us listening on the radio. There is a viewer discretion that I'm going to put on this video. But I want to highlight the fact that every life is precious, especially those in the womb. And God's power moves even today. And you are literally going to watch a miracle with your waking eyes. And when you see this, it's hard not to cry when you see something like this. There are a lot of people out there, and I'm going to go ahead and break some news on something that is coming to Spokane. A lot of people out there that have lost a pregnancy, and a great friend of mine is helping to start a vision that was given to yours truly a few years ago. And he's expanded it, and God's given him more vision to it. And it's a beautiful thing when people can come together in the body and just really hear the heart of the Lord. And it's called the National Pregnancy Loss Memorial. Coming to Spokane soon and to stay. We'll have more information in the future, but the point behind it is it's not just those that have experienced abortion and just the horrible tragedy surrounding this, but anybody that's lost a pregnancy, and a place for them to go and to mourn and to heal, and really just to face this kind of eternal question about life and what happens afterwards. And so this video that we have today really is in that vein, that life at any moment can be taken, but at any moment, life can also be given. Go ahead and roll the clip. Now, what you're seeing and what you're hearing was a baby who was born dead, gray, and suddenly life came into the baby, literally it looks like from the feet all the way to the head. God's resurrection power, all life is precious, especially the unborn. That brings us now to the globalist front, coming to us from Technocracy News. And I want to take a moment right now and acknowledge a friend of mine. His name is Patrick Wood, Citizens for Free Speech. He's just been an outspoken advocate for free speech for years. He had a stroke, and I just want to lift him up in prayer right now for everybody online, which just joined me in agreement. Father, we lift up Patrick and his family. We thank you for complete healing over him and his body, his mind, Lord God, and we ask right now for comfort. And thank you, Lord, for comfort over his family and those that have been working so closely with him by his side. And God, I ask right now, too, that you would just put a burden on our hearts to continue praying for them over these next days and weeks. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, from Technocracy News, which is the site that he runs, extent of debanking revealed. Nearly 1 million UK accounts shut in the past 4 years. Nigel Farage is taking on the global bank cartel on 2 counts, debanking based on political views and forcing cash out of society. Britain is the canary in the coal mine because the Bank of England is arguably the most powerful central bank in the world. The BOE is pushing its member banks to crush opposition while taking over all monetary policies. And what happened and what is happening is people are having their bank accounts closed for no reason. Well, there is a reason. A de facto social credit score system is in place in a lot of the Western world. And now they're testing the reaction to it when people lose their accounts. Once again, no thank you. And that brings us to Liberty Sentinel. God bless Alex Newman, doing a great job there. UN Summit of the Future plans to empower UN 2.0. As if UN 1.0 wasn't bad enough, they want to have UN 2.0. Citizens everywhere are in the crosshairs. The upcoming conference will bring together presidents, dictators, prime ministers, and potentates to consider a range of our common future policy proposals. Well, what are those things? Here they are. All those plans are aimed at giving new and stronger authorities to the UN under the guise of fighting emergencies, protecting the planet, considering the interests of young people, and more. So again, they are planning this in 2023, maybe at the end of it, and 2024, this United Nations Summit of the Future. And you can actually find it online. We're going to go ahead and put that up there right now. This link, it says UN.org, Common Agenda, Summit of the Future in 2024. Multilateral solutions for a better tomorrow. And oh, hey, look at this in the very first sentence. They mention the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine war. How about that? All right. So we're going to post this up on the links. So take a look at this. This is real. I want to educate your friends and family about this. This is really the cutting edge of news right now. And that brings us to China. China's National Bureau of Statistics, which deals with Chinese economics and the picture of Chinese economics, made an announcement during a press conference on August 15th that it will suspend the reporting of youth unemployment. In other words, ages 16 to 24. Why is that important? Because if you track unemployment with younger people, you will notice that when there's a high unemployment rate between the ages of 16 and 24, in this case over 20%, in China, not only is it an indicator of economic problems, but also it's an indicator of potential social unrest. NBS spokesman said the surveys needed to be further improved and optimized so that the economy and society are constantly developing and changing. Statistics need to be constantly improved as a justification for the decision. Well, here's the rest of the story. Data through the first half of 2023 reported youth unemployment, again, 16 to 24-year-olds, at 21.3%, and it's projected to rise before the NBS decided to withhold that data from the July report. Wow. So China's economy, obviously not doing well. All right, that brings us to Indo-Pac news. Open source intelligence, by the way, does a fantastic job. They're put on by Knightsbridge Intelligence. They're a couple great organizations. Indo-Pac news. More images to get a better perspective of the location. If we could get that up on the screen, that would be fantastic. More images to get a better perspective of the location and infrastructure work going on in the new Chinese airfield under construction at Triton Island, which is part of the Chinese-occupied Paracel Islands near Vietnam in the South China Sea. You can see what they're doing right there. They're making an air base and what looks like some kind of an ammunition dump there. This is what is really causing Vietnam to shift toward the sphere of the United States. You heard that right, Communist Vietnam, and away from China, because they're doing this right off their shores. So again, did we get that up there on the screen? So if we could put that up there on the screen, that'd be fantastic. I want to just give a little bit of analysis on this upper left-hand corner map. So Triton Island is you can see the Chinese claim line. Triton Island is very close to Vietnam and really very far away from China, but China is claiming the whole South China Sea as its sole domain. Well, obviously Vietnam has some claims to these things as well. So this is just another potential flashpoint, but I wanted to just show you this because it explains very clearly in graphic depiction why Vietnam is heading toward the sphere of the United States. All right, that brings us next to the Middle East. Iranian and Saudi Arabian military officials met for the first time since a Chinese brokered détente and a resumption of diplomatic relationships. The meeting occurred between the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Islamic Republic and the Saudi Assistant Defense Minister. Well, what's really interesting about this, too, is China has taken this role of foreign diplomacy in the Middle East, and obviously it's around oil, but when Iran and Saudi Arabia are on the same page, and especially within 1 week of discussions about Israel and Saudi Arabia normalizing relations, well, I just think this bodes war in the Middle East in the near future. I think that these pieces are being aligned prior to a war between Israel and Iran. That brings us to Africa. More war. U.S. refuses to rule out military intervention in Niger. The National Pulse. You heard that right. Joe Biden, his National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, has refused to rule out U.S. support for an invasion of Niger. And by the way, it looks like that may be happening here in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to keep our eyes on that very carefully, because in the Sahel there, where there has been a lot of counterterrorism operations, the Russians have come in, the Chinese have come in and tried to remove almost completely U.S. influence in that region. That brings us to the Gateway Pundit. Powder keg Europe. Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia to shut NATO borders with Belarus. So in the Ukraine-Russia front, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland are shutting their borders with Belarus. Increasingly, Poland is militarizing, saying Lukashenko will try to disrupt its elections. And I'm going to get into what's actually happening on the ground in Ukraine. And again, it's so hard to get a real accurate picture. But this is accurate. With the Wagner forces that went into Belarus, Poland very clearly is moving a lot of forces to its border with Belarus. And when I say a lot, I'm talking an entire division. That's not including any U.S. troops anywhere close to the Ukrainian or Belarusian border. They're also moving a lot of armor in that direction. And if you know history, you know that that area of Europe particularly has started many wars in the past. So we're going to keep our eyes on this. It just seems like we're coming into a time in the next few months where there's going to be expansion of war in the Pacific, expansion of war in Europe. Not that we want this, again, but it just seems like things are continuing to ramp up. Also on the Ukraine-Russia front, coming to us from open source intelligence, reports from Russian mill bloggers indicate that Russian morale is plummeting with mechanized units failing to support light infantry. Also, there's significant concern that there is a lack of support along the Dnipro River due to shifting of Russian forces that will render the area more vulnerable to Ukrainian armed force attacks and counteroffensives. So Russian mill bloggers are claiming a reduction in morale. They're also claiming that there are no more reserves. And so what's happening, instead of reserves being moved up to the front, the Russians are pulling from other areas of the front and moving forces laterally. Now, that is a very strong indication of weakening Russian lines. There are some that are saying that maybe actually this is weakening of Russian lines for another Russian offensive here in the winter. I don't think they physically have the forces to do that. I don't think they have the logistics to do that after some of these key logistics routes have been bombed and taken out. So this really looks like, to me, there will be in the next, again, 1 to 3 months, a very clear, either breakthrough by the Ukrainian military or breakthrough by the Russian military. And right now, if you're being totally objective, it looks like the breakthroughs are happening from the Ukrainian side, which means that they're going to continue to float these ideas for peace. Now, if we could pull this next link up, this is a very clear visual brief of the Ukrainian strategy, what they want to do there in southern Ukraine. The problem with the Russian military is its logistics. You've heard me say this literally for years, even before this whole thing started. The Russian logistics is just awful. And when it's stretched out along a broad front, it provides many areas where you can punch through and cut Russian supply lines, but also cut off the Russian military. And so the Ukrainian army is trying in basically 3 directions to cut off the Russian army. Now, because the Russians have had a very significant tiered defense, it's made the Ukrainian military very, very slow in advancing. So again, the next 1 to 3 months, I think this is going to shake out very clearly about how this war actually ends. Now, that brings us to the United States and Mexico. Coming to us from open source intelligence, according to a Bloomberg report, the U.S. is preparing to escalate its complaint against Mexico's ban on U.S. GMO corn. Well, Mexico's primary corn crop is white corn used in making tortillas, while U.S. GMO corn is yellow corn primarily used in livestock feed. Mexico does not produce enough yellow corn for its needs, but believes that GMO corn harms native varieties and may have health risks. So now GMO is elevated to a trade level. How about the United States just stop using GMO stuff? How about that? Clearly there's a market for it. That brings us next to the Gateway Pundit. FBI shoots and kills another American in pre-dawn raid in Albuquerque. Now, I'm just going to comment on this very quickly. If you're continuing to kill people when you do a raid, you're doing it wrong. Oh, well, they did this and they did that. No, you need to have tactics and use tactics where it results in a peaceful resolution. So obviously something is going wrong here. It needs to be reevaluated from a tactical perspective. And I think, honestly, from a constitutional perspective as well. Now, next from Gateway Pundit, O'Keefe Media to drop explosive update to undercover reporting on illegal voter registration in Fulton County, Georgia. And they're going to drop this here very shortly. So as soon as we get it, we'll let you know. Georgia law requires a person to vote where they live, and permitting someone to use a false statement on a voter registration is illegal and punishable by up to 10 years in prison. And this is interesting. The undercover journalist who met with Adam Seeley, the director of social services at Emmaus House, over 2 years ago and discovered thousands of people registered to vote at the food closet, where he was the managing director, has an exciting update. So we're going again. This update, it looks like it's coming tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. I don't know how much more evidence is needed here to actually do an investigation into this stuff, but we will see. That brings us to the Epoch Times, coming to us in a video form, but there's a short little blurb below it. I just want to read this. Genetically modified mosquitoes have been given the green light to be released in America. And here's the question. Mosquitoes modified to spread vaccines? Oh, brother. Lord, help us mercy. A national disgrace coming to us from Gateway Pundit. Photos leaked of horrific January 6th prisoner abuse, tortured 5 months in isolation in a closet room with light on and a bucket for a toilet. Just another example of what's going on there, and people in Congress need to intervene in a tangible way. Coming to us from WorldNet Daily, top U.S. doctor group wants taxpayers to fund uterus transplants. Wait for it. For men. Top U.S. doctor group wants to have taxpayers fund uterus transplants for men. How crazy is this going to get? Travis, could you bring that picture up there real quick of that headline? I just want people to see this is real. There's no hyperbole here. AMA joins crusade for biological men to have babies with a uterus transplant. Are you kidding me? This is why people are waking up all over the country. And that brings us now to the regional front. I want to highlight Kingdom Christian Academy, and I want to highlight a couple things about Kingdom Christian Academy. So we believe that parents are in charge of their kids' education. We also believe that through technology and homeschooling that a lot of options are available. But there's been a missing piece in the education system since really the 1800s, and that piece, with very rare exceptions, that piece is discipleship training. So KCA helps in the homeschool front, but also there is discipleship training. That's what we're about, discipleship training. And if you want a place that supports biblical worldview, supports your values, and is a discipleship training area that also has access to all these other areas of education, KCA is for you. And in addition to that, there's full-time, part-time scholarship options available, and there's 4 separate educational tracks depending on your child. So I believe that every church should start a school, and I mean that. We've helped several start already. Every church should start a school. The question for you is, which school are you going to put them in? And if it resonates with you that your child should be discipled and have a great education, Kingdom Christian Academy is for you. And lastly, coming up this weekend, August 20th, 5 p.m., Riverfront Park at the Pavilion. Sean Foyt is here. Last year we had 6,000 people this year. It is going to be a blast. So join us, 5 p.m. Sunday night, 5 p.m. at the Pavilion, downtown Spokane. Sean Foyt, a whole bunch of ministries here in Spokane have come together. We're under one banner, the banner of Jesus Christ. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. Thank you to everybody that has been praying for us, and also everybody that has been blessing us through likes and comments and shares. And I want you to take a moment, go on Rumble, subscribe, and make sure you comment or do something with that. And across your favorite social media platforms, we're on virtually all of them, at Matt Shea 1 on True Social. But Rumble's the best way we found right now to get around censorship. So help us by doing that. And just take a moment tonight. Just hit like, share, comment. Even if the comment is great show, or, hey, I'd like to see this guest on. Something really simple. Helps a lot. All right, we're going to do an entree to our guest with a video. The indoctrination in this country of communism is even at the grade school level. It's a little surprising. And so we just need to acknowledge that and acknowledge that this goes against the very foundations of this country, the very values that made this country great. So we're going to start with a 9-year-old telling us about communism.
There are a lot of communists and socialists on TikTok. The fact that we're having so many people in Gen Z identifying as socialists and communists shows just how much we failed teaching students the dangers of communism and socialism.
If I were to ever start a country with a communist government, wink, wink, wait 12 years. We really can't have poor people. It's not good for a whole class of people to be poor. All those morons saying that communism is the same as welfare, you can go leave because you are just an absolute moron. Just look up the definition of that. I'm sorry I got a little heated, but when people say it's the same as welfare, I get really angry. Anyway, yeah.
A lot of life experience there, and that brings us to our guest today. Chad Stewart has 20 years experience as a global strategist. His areas of expertise are global strategy, film and media production, innovative education, and international marketing. Chad Stewart is also the author of Britfield, a novel which is taking the world by storm. He wrote this to help with restoring family values and to oppose the education system atrocity that so many of us are fighting everywhere across this country. Chad, it is great to finally have you on Patriot Radio today. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
So let's talk about that. What's your reaction to a 9-year-old espousing communism? And you notice that he's espousing it, and you can see the violence beginning to creep in, even at 9 years old. Incredible.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's where our public system is today. It's been like this on a downward spiral really since the 1950s and 60s. It escalated in the 80s and 90s. There's a great book out there called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of the American Public, done by a woman that worked under the Reagan administration in education. And so everything you're seeing in the educational system is not a failure. It's actually a complete success. But on the other side of it, I really come with good news. I'm not here to criticize. I'm really here to talk about, what you can do, what we're doing, the impact that we're having, and what's happening in America as parents are waking up.
Yeah, we're seeing it happen right now, just even here in Spokane, Washington. There are so many kids leaving the government school system. The parents are looking for good at quality education. And I've just been standing on the rooftop saying, please open a school in your church. It's not being used most of the week. Open a school in your church. Every church should have a school. There's plenty of room. And I know there's many other options out there. And so I want to turn the floor over to you. Let's talk about what are some of the options for parents right now. What should parents be doing to really reclaim their rightful place in training up their kids in the way they should go?
Yeah, and I was in Spokane, Washington a couple of years ago as part of our national tour for Britfield and Lost Crown, and great. I've always wanted to go to Spokane. Beautiful, beautiful city. Had a great time there. We actually I'll tie into that, but I drove 9,000 miles. I visited 23 states, presented to over more than 200 schools, to over more than 40,000 students. And I'd come in as an award-winning, best-selling author. I talked a little bit about Britfield, but I was really there to inspire the children. And I was really trying to influence individuality, creativity, and the importance of creativity, the importance of storytelling, and the importance of having an idea. But where that idea might take you 3, 5, 10, even 20 years to realize, because Britfield and Lost Crown for me was an idea that I had over 10 years ago, and we finally launched in August, book one, in August of 2019. And, it was 10 years of hardship, 10 years of hard work, 10 years of failure, 10 years of rejection. And so, I really impacted the children. We also did it because we were really interested in just seeing what the American landscape was in the United States. And so I think I can speak to it as somewhat of an expert, not just from 10 years of research and a lot of different background and degrees, but just talking with thousands of students so I could get to see what's happening right now, librarians, teachers. But it's interesting, in March of 2020, when this whole nonsense happened, we were on our tour, and I was really excited because I finally got to Middle America. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and I just did 4 schools back to back, and then all of a sudden everything started happening, and all these schools started shutting down, and I was like, oh, because I wanted to get to like Indiana and like Chicago and
Right.
and Ohio. I just couldn't wait to like get to the hub of it and then come down south, and I just thought that would have been amazing. And so I had to drive all the way back to San Diego, California, with nowhere to stop, right? I mean, it's just like as fast as you can get back. And I was thinking of 3 things. And I was thinking it'd be very interesting when this whole ridiculousness is over, how many parents will be sending their kids back to traditional schools? Mm-hmm. I was basing it on three things. Number one, I think for the first time, and this is true now, the first time parents are seeing and horrified by what kids are being exposed to and learning in the classroom. Number 2, that they're behind in a lot of subjects that they shouldn't be. And 3, how fast a child could accelerate within 2 or 3 hours of interrupted time, be done with the subject, be done with the homework for the day, and go out and, I don't know what, play, have fun, do something creative, and not have to be in an institution for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And suddenly I started seeing statistics come out that 20 to 30% of parents weren't sending their kids back to traditional school. And so those numbers might be a little bit smaller, but right now we are in an education reformation, much like Martin Luther, and we are in a homeschool revolution. And so this is answering your question with a little bit of background, but we've seen homeschooling go from 5 million to over 15 million nationally in the last 18 to 24 months. That's extraordinary. And we've also seen it really consolidate. Before it was sort of siloed and it was a bit disconnected. And I think parents think like, I can't stay home and homeschool. We're a two working family. You don't have to. I think there's so many different models that are available today for homeschooling. You can drop your child off at a homeschool group or even a charter school that's part of a homeschool program in the morning instead of dropping them off at an industrial institution, where their greatest qualification is that they're 12 years old and they're all in the same classroom. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about a lot of things that I'm seeing that are happening across the nation with parents getting involved in the student board or the government aspects of it. That's huge, and it's time and it's necessary. But the old model, the public school system, it's dead. It's over. We're seeing the last days, in my opinion, of Nazi Germany. Now it'll kick, it'll scream, it'll whine, it'll hang in there for another 3 to 5 years. But as far as I'm concerned, it's over. So let these freaks and lunatics and soon to be hopefully arrested people push what they're pushing. But it's the beginning of the end, and there's a reckoning coming. I will guarantee that, and every one of them will be held responsible and accountable for what they've taught, for what they've exposed kids to, and going along with this communistic mindset. And so it's pretty bad. But even just in California, we have over 1,000 charter schools, and that should tell you a lot. That should tell you a lot of what the public system is like. And so I have a great passion for teachers. I have a great respect for teachers. It is a very, very hard, difficult role to be called to. It doesn't pay well enough. I think teachers should be some of the highest paid professionals in the industry, but I think they should also be grounded in the Constitution. and teach America, teach history, teach civics, and teach a lot of things that I and probably you yourself learned when we were in elementary school and even in the middle school. And I was blessed. I had a great upbringing in Newport Beach, California. I had a great elementary school. I had great teachers, and that carved me. That set the foundation for me for the rest of my life. And the most important thing parents can do right now isn't buying them the newest gadgets. It's making sure that they're properly educated and that they're learning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in fact, communism itself used to be banned, used to be illegal. In fact, it's on some state books is still there. Communism is banned as a subversive organization. And here you have teachers who openly now, they're no longer hiding it, openly subscribe to values that are intent on undermining the United States of America and bringing it down. And so I want to shift gears a little bit and just talk about your book, Britfield. It's going to become a movie, I hear, as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up in Newport Beach, California. I was back east in Wellesley, Massachusetts for 16 years, so I was kind of in the heart of New England. Very interesting place to be for 16 years, and not what it was in 1620 or 1776. That's for sure. But I got into investment banking. It's interesting, and was pursuing that. But I had this wonderful creative ability. We all have that creativeness. We're all born with creativity. So whether you feel that you're creative or not, you are. It's a gift from God. But we just get sort of inundated with life, with debt, with job that we don't really like. And so I was sent to this horrible web seminar in Providence, Rhode Island, 12 years ago, and I started to drift and I started to doodle. And I doodled a simple circle, 3 lines, a basket, a boy and a girl, and I wrote The Boy and the Balloon. And I suddenly saw this wonderful story. And so I went home, I outlined it on one piece of paper, and it was very interesting. That was kind of my moment. We've all had those moments where I saw this whole thing literally come together, and how big it was going to be. I don't know how. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I never wanted to write children's novels. But I sat down, and I spent 4 years, 2,500 hours to write Britfield and the Lost Crown, which is book 1, and it's 384 pages. And we launched it officially in August 2019, and since then it's become a national bestseller. It's becoming a global bestseller, and it's actually one of the most awarded books in children's fiction, winning the prestigious Parents' Choice Gold Medal, Mom's Choice Gold Medal, Literary Classic. So it's been amazing, and it's so interesting because it's like it took a lot of time, but it's like there's a 93% gap in the industry right now, worldwide, for clean content, for family values, for uplifting moral stories and books. 93% gap. I mean, it's just wide open. Hollywood can't fill it. Hollywood will never fill it. All the publishing industries, 96% of them owned by 5 corporations. They're not going to fill it, and they can't fill it. And that's why we're selling like crazy. Our youngest reader's 7. Our oldest reader's 93. We've had 12-year-olds read it in 5 hours. And what's great about it is it's based on family, friendship, loyalty, faith, and courage. It takes place in present time, which I think is so important. And takes place in real places. Book 1's in England. And as children are reading it, as adults are reading it, they're learning about history, geography, art, architecture, culture. And we're hitting the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. And so all of this is happening within the story. And children are starting to think for themselves, react to themselves. They're connecting with the characters. Uh-oh. Are you there?
Yep, we're here. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see me? Okay, great. I'm sorry, I bopped out. And so it's just been amazing. The feedback we've had is amazing. I just received an email yesterday. We get them all the time from a woman in Arizona, an adult. She said, "Oh my gosh," she goes, "I've been looking for something edifying and decent to read." And she goes, "I read Britfield in one day." And she goes, "It reminded me of the Count of Monte Cristo with characters from Jane Austen and Tolkien." And I thought, wow.
Wow, yeah, that's right.
2 days ago, real quick, I received an email from a woman in Amsterdam that bought the book. I remember shipping it over there. It's like $40 to ship it. And she wanted book 2. And she was just thanking me. She's like, "Thank you for writing these books. They're so inspiring." She goes, "I've never read anything like it." And so we can go deeper into that, or we can talk about the movie, but that's sort of a quick overview. But they really are having that impact. And the main reason is not only they're fast-paced and written well, but they're based in real time, and they're introducing real situations, real locations, and real characters that the readers can relate to. It's not Harry Potter. It's not waving a wand to figure out your problems or solve them, right? It's not flying. It's not being a demigod. or superhero, which is really all a disconnect from reality.
It absolutely is, and I'm glad you just said that. Let's talk though about the movie. What's the timeline for it? I mean, is it coming out soon? What can we expect?
No, we're excited. It's as everything with films, it's a long process. We started 2 years ago on the development. I've got a great producer team. One of them with 40 years of experience in Hollywood, worked with all the big studios. We started the script back in January of this year. I just spoke with my scriptwriter on Tuesday, and we're reviewing the second draft that he's done. And it was just the first act, and I am so excited. It is so well written. It is so tight. I myself, my background was script writing, and I think that's one of the reasons that the books were written, if you will, well and fast paced, and people are just engaged in them, because I was trained on that traditional script writing, that structure, economy of words, moving the story, midpoint, etc. And so we're now getting into pre-production stage. I just finished part of the business plan for a couple directors that we're looking at. One that I'll hopefully mention soon, and we'll know a lot more within the next 6 to 8 weeks. But we've got a couple of heavy hitters that we're going to bring in, hopefully one of them. And then we're looking at some of the major actors. We're hoping to start filming in England in, I would say, spring of next year, and then parts of Eastern Europe. But I definitely want to try to film as much in England. I know traditionally you don't have to. You know, you have an opening B-roll of London, and then the next shot's shot at a studio, and I get that. And then you have a lot of interior shots. But I do want to incorporate as much of England in it for a lot of reasons. The authenticity of it, I think England would be exciting, because I think this will open up doors to travel. I mean, that's what's so fun. I mean, kids can go to all these different places, starting in Yorkshire, Oxford, Windsor, London, Hyde Park, St. James, all this, St. Paul's Cathedral, all the way down to Canterbury. And I've had parents that have said, we just got done with our British tour, our Britfield British tour. And one girl, she's like, oh my gosh, that's where Tom and Sarah were, and that's where they had tea, and that's the hotel they stayed at. That's just so exciting to bring travel, to bring geography, to bring life alive to these kids. And so if all goes well, we'll be releasing the first Britfield and Lost Crown movie November 2025. I know that sounds far off, but it isn't, because we'll start an 18-month worldwide book tour and campaign, traveling the world promoting the Britfield series and the movie. And we anticipate that the Britfield movie will be one of the most highest grossing films in cinematic history, and actually break box office records. It's just wide open for it right now. There's nothing like it in the industry, and parents, people worldwide, they are starving. Don't be fooled by statistics or all of this other stuff. People generally are born, if you will, born moral, born good. Parents just want good content for their kids, and they don't have much of a choice. And so we're giving them that choice. We're giving them a film like this. It's going to be 7 books, 7 movies. And then once that's done filming, we'll jump into book 2, which is Britfield and the Rise of the Lion. It takes place in France. And we'll start filming that. So you'll see every 18 months to 2 years, the Britfield movie's being released. We're working on 2 television sitcoms right now, or cable series. One based on Weatherly Orphanage, the other on the Britfields. And we got a lot of things planned. So.
Wow, that is fantastic. And I just am speaking for myself maybe, but I think I'm actually speaking for most of America. I hadn't been in a movie theater for 10 years until this year. Nefarious, Sound of Freedom, Come Out in Jesus' Name. I mean, just some great, and the Jesus Revolution movie, just some great movies. And what was so interesting is we would talk about it at church, and we had most of the church show up to the movie theater, and I think they're now starting to pay attention. And this is an important point. We don't have to settle. We don't have to compromise. There actually is good content out there that's made in a spirit of excellence.
No, Sound of Freedom, made for $15 million, shelved for 5 years. It's nearing $180 million at the box office. It's actually outselling Mission Impossible number 7, which was made for $293 million. That will not break even, by the way. Movies need to make anywhere from 4 to 5 times their actual budget to make a profit. So I enjoyed the Mission Impossible movies, frankly. But but that's not going to break. It's not going to break even. And then Jesus Revolution. I'll give you this. That was my church. I attended Calvary Chapel when I was 22 years old, and knew Greg Laurie, and so it was like, whoa, right? Because there's like over 100,000 churches worldwide, and I'm like, that's my church. And Pirates Cove, if you remember, I lived two miles from Pirates Cove, so it was pretty.
Oh, no
pretty
kidding.
wild. Yeah, pretty wild.
That's awesome. That's actually where I came into the faith, was through Calvary Chapel, actually here in Spokane, Washington. Was there for 10 years. So just amazing. Yeah, and just seeing this now come into reality, where God redeemed movie theaters. I mean, everything is possible, right? All things are possible through Christ who strengthens us. Seeing movie theaters redeemed and people praying. I mean, just spontaneously getting up and praying at the end of these movies was also super encouraging to me. So, Chad, we only have a couple minutes left. In the last 2 minutes or so we have left, where can people go to help support what you're doing? And also, how can they help promote the movie when it comes out?
Yeah, those are great questions. You can check out our website. It's britfield.com. That's our website. It's an award-winning website. It has over 400 pictures of England. So it's meant to complement the book. So if you're reading the book or you're teaching this book in class, we actually have an 83-page study guide. This is intended to be taught in the classroom. We're already in thousands of schools, and we're being taught in hundreds of schools already. Britfield and Lost Ground. So you can purchase the books there. You'll get a signed copy. We have a lot of our interviews there. We have our school tour. You can see a lot of the pictures from the school tour. We actually launched this year in February the Britfield and Lost Ground theatrical play, specifically designed for elementary and middle schools to bring back quality content to the theater groups. And we piloted it at Mission Viejo Christian School last October, 4 nights, total success. And we had over 30 students that were involved from 4th to 8th graders. And it was cool. It was it was really surreal to see it up on the stage. And I'm excited. So,
Chad, thank you so much. Great conversation. We want to have you back on again. Really appreciate everything you're doing. And I know God is blessing it beyond your wildest imaginations. And so we want to support you in whatever way we can, and really appreciate just your heart for the next generation. God bless you. And thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Just get the word out. And just get the word out, support us, tell people about Britfield, bring it into your homeschool group, bring it into your classroom. So thank you.
Amen. Chad Stewart, Britfield.com. He is a strategist and an author, the author of Britfield, the novel, taking the world by storm right now. And it's just incredible. There is great content out there, and we don't have to settle. We don't have to be, kind of digging up those old Left Behind movies that just weren't made in the spirit of excellence in a lot of ways. God bless them. I'm not taking anything away, but we are now at a place where we need people who are producing excellent content, like Travis and Sawyer and a bunch of other people that are coming on board here at On Fire Ministries. We've got a great young lady named Victoria that's doing fantastic Instagram reels. You got to check them out. They're really God edifying. And so we can do this, everybody. We don't have to seed the media. We don't have to seed the arts and entertainment to other people. And novels like Britfield, and now going to become a movie, 7 novels, 7 movies. And you could see the spirit of excellence on Chad. He just wants to see the next generation taught the values, inculcated with the values that have made this nation and Western civilization great. What's God putting on your heart to become a part of something like that? What's God putting on your heart to do to influence the world? Oh, Matt, I just live in Spokane and I don't really do much. There's something God has made you for. And he wants you to find out what it is. He's not hiding the ball on you. He wants you to walk into your calling. He wants to use you to transform the world. Are you ready to receive it? Take a moment tonight and pray about that with your family. What are we called to do individually, and what are we called to do as a family? Transform the world for his glory and honor and praise. Britfield.com. Check it out. Amazing. And there's more to come from many other artists that are now taking the stage for God's glory and his kingdom. And that brings us to the event coming up this weekend. Sean Foyt is going to be here August 20th, 5 p.m., downtown Spokane at the Pavilion. Look forward to seeing you all there. Just stop by. Stop by with the tent, say hi, catch my attention while we're down there. Just say hi. Hey, love Patriot Radio. Or, hey, I'd love to see this guest on there. Or, hey, what about doing this in the future? Love to hear that kind of feedback. So grab me this weekend on Sunday, 5 p.m. at the Pavilion. It's going to be a great time. We're going to be doing baptisms. There's going to be a whole lot of repentance and a whole lot of transformed lives. Following on the heels of the great event we just had with Chris Overstreet right here at On Fire Ministries, we had hundreds of people here. We had a gang leader set free, baptized, gave his life to the Lord, life completely transformed. We saw a prostitute come off the street and get the help she needs and be transformed and give her life to Jesus as well. Just some amazing stories like that. And just, it really encourages me right now that people are waking up. There's a lot of media out there right now that's trying to tell you, there's doom and gloom. And you hear the reality part of Patriot Radio, but we're always talking about the fact there's an awakening happening. And guys like Chad Stewart, who said yes to God, and he wrote a novel for the Lord, and now God is blessing that, and it's going to bless generations, and he wants to do the same thing through each one of us and you. See you this Sunday, 5 o'clock at the Pavilion. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. And he is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.